spits heel upon thy shore. That said, bygones with the North are apparently really bygones. Maryland has now, in a way, asked permission to secede from the South, or at least from the southern region of the Council of State Governments. Maryland instead would like to join the eastern region of the Council of State Governments. No state has actually switched regions since Missouri went from being Midwest to Southern in 1994. Maryland now says it would like to make the switch because, according to its state officials, Maryland has more in common economically and socially with states like Pennsylvania and New York and New Jersey than it does with southern states like Virginia. Especially Virginia now, since the last election, it is fast becoming known as Jesse Helmsistan. As we have covered on this show, Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell rescinded the state's old anti-discrimination order right after he was elected. He replaced it with a new one that explicitly doesn't protect gay people from being discriminated against. So it is legal to fire state employees in Virginia simply because they're gay. It didn't used to be legal, but the new Republican governor of Virginia took overt steps right after he was elected to make it legal to fire people for being gay right after he became governor. Happy 2010. The hard-right anti-gay activism of Virginia's new governor is in part how a Maryland state senator is making his case to a defense contractor considering where to locate its new executive headquarters. The contractor is Northrop Grumman, and they've received a perfect score from the gay rights group, the Human Rights Campaign, for the last few years. One Maryland state senator has now written to the company suggesting that if the company wants to do right by its reputation for being respectful to its gay employees, the company might want to move its new headquarters not to Virginia, but instead to a nearby, less vociferously anti-gay state that rhymes with Schmaryland. Of course, Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell has not been alone on his anti-gay policy agenda. There has been a Robin to his Batman, a Chong to his Cheech, a Mr. Bigglesworth to his Dr. Evil. Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, he's the one on the left, has been by Governor McDonnell's side for this dramatic turn of the Commonwealth's government against its gay citizens. As soon as Governor McDonnell cut gay people out of the state's anti-discrimination order, Mr. Cuccinelli followed up with a directive to Virginia's public universities telling them they could not legally prohibit discrimination against gay people, and they should change their existing non-discrimination policies if the ones they did have already included that protection. Mr. Cuccinelli is the Attorney General, right? So maybe there's some highfalutin legal reasoning behind that order. Maybe he's not, personally anti-gay at all. Maybe there's just some more complicated procedural legal explanation that's above all of our heads, maybe, right?
Do you think gays, the practice of homosexuality is a detriment to our culture?
The acts are, you certainly want everybody in your society to be integrated into the society, so that's a focus that I'd like to take.
Consider that focus very much taken. Here on national television. You're welcome. And for the record, some people think your acts are detrimental to American culture too, sir. When a retired Marine general yesterday testified in the Senate in favor of keeping the military's anti-gay, don't ask, don't tell policy, that general appears to have started a little war of his own. Retired General Jack Sheehan blamed the Srebrenica massacre in Bosnia in 1995 on the fact that the Dutch military allowed its gay soldiers to serve openly.
That was the largest massacre in Europe since World War II.
Did the Dutch leaders tell you it was because there were gay soldiers there?
It was a combination.
Did they tell you that? That's my question. They did.
They included that as part of the problem.
Actually, not so much. Pressed to name these people, he said, were Dutch leaders who supposedly told him that Srebrenica happened because the Dutch had gay soldiers. General Sheehan said that he based his allegation on something he was told by a man named Hankman Berman. That's what he said. Hankman Berman told me it was the gays. The Dutch say they've never heard of anyone named Hankman Berman, but they do say there is a former chief of staff in the Dutch Defense Ministry whose name is General Henk van den Bremen. So maybe that's who General Sheehan meant? Turns out it couldn't have been him either. General van den Bremen says what General Jack Sheehan says about gay soldiers is, and I quote, Absolute nonsense. Bremen says he never said anything like that to Sheehan, and besides, what Sheehan's claiming about Srebrenica just is not true. In the days since General Sheehan made these comments, in the one day since General Sheehan made these comments, the Dutch have gone nuts about this. If you peek out your window right now and you see an angry Dutchman holding a pitchfork or a torch or something, just hide and hope he calms down. The Dutch defense minister said that General Sheehan's comments were, quote, scandalous and unbefitting a soldier. The Dutch defense ministry spokesman said it is astonishing that a man of his stature can utter such complete nonsense. The Dutch foreign minister called Sheehan's comments extremely strange, saying the claim was, quote, the bizarre private opinion of someone without an official function. The head of the Dutch military union said, that man is just crazy. That sounds harsh, but what else can I say, because it's complete nonsense. The Dutch ambassador to our country said the military mission of Dutch UN soldiers at Srebrenica has been exhaustively studied and evaluated. There is nothing that suggests any relationship between gays serving in the military and that mass murder. Even the Dutch prime minister weighed in on this, calling Sheehan's remarks way off the mark and saying they should never have been made. The head of a gay soldiers group in the Netherlands maybe wins. That group's quote is that Sheehan's comments were, quote, the ridiculous convulsion of a loner. I don't know what convulsion of a loner means, but let's hope the Dutch are slightly less horrified with Jack Sheehan and with us the next time we go back to them yet again to ask them to serve with our troops in Iraq or Afghanistan or anywhere else. Also, just as a political note here, if the best ally and the best argument the pro-don't ask, don't tell people have now is General Sheehan and his imaginary Dutch friend Henk van Berman, I think we may be pretty much on the track to repeal. Orly Tates. If that name rings a bell, it's because Orly Tates is the queen of the birthers. Orly Tates is the California dentist who has filed lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit alleging that President Obama is secretly foreign, that he's secretly not really president, that his actual birth certificate, which you see here, isn't really his actual birth certificate. Orly Tates has had 3 previous lawsuits about this dismissed. She has been fined $20,000 by a court in Georgia for the frivolous nature of one of these lawsuits. She's the most purely distilled essence of undeterrable birther fanaticism that we have in this country. And Orly Tates wants to be California's Secretary of State. She has qualified as a candidate. She's competing with a former pro football player named Damon Dunn for the Republican nomination for the job of California Secretary of State. How is she competing against Mr. Dunn? Well, true to form, not kidding, she has filed a lawsuit against him challenging his eligibility for office. Yes. According to the Orange County Registrar of Voters, Ms. Tates filed a complaint that's 55 or 60 pages long, alleging her opponent was not registered as a Republican for long enough to qualify as a candidate, and thus she says he is ineligible to run on the Republican ticket. So it's just like birtherism, except if it's a different black man this time. The Rachel Maddow Show, of course, does not endorse candidates and is affiliated with no politician or party. But we do every once in a while close our eyes and we press really hard with our fingers into our eyeballs. And then sometimes we can see what Orly Tates' campaign ads might be like. Try it.
California deserves a fighter as Secretary of State, and they'll get one with Orly Tates. She's a lawyer. She's a dentist. She has a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo. So she's trained to inflict pain on a variety of levels. And as Secretary of State, she will. Who else will defend us from the tyranny of Barack Hussein Obama's birth certificate?
A number of volunteers have called each and every hospital in Hawaii, and no one had any record of either Obama or his mother ever being hospitalized there.
Orly Tates won't be bullied by Obama's web of lies. I believe he is the most dangerous thing one can imagine, in that he represents radical communism and radical Islam. He was born and raised in radical Islam. All of his associations are with radical Islam, and he was groomed in the environment of the dirty Chicago Mafia. Can anything be scarier than that? As Secretary of State, Orly Tates will protect Californians from radical Islamic, communist, Kenyan, Indonesian, Chicago mafiosi, regardless of the evidence. Some people don't know the meaning of the word stop or of the word paranoid. or of the word cuckoo. That person is Orly Tates. Paid for by the Committee to Elect Orly Tates. Yes.
That does it for us tonight. Boy, we had fun with that. We'll see you back here again on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks very much for joining us. Have a great night.